This is Dave Thomas talking with Ann Giganti. Good morning, Ann. So you've written a book. What is this book called?
The title of the book is Voiceless Child. No one dreamed she might survive, might talk, except two ordinary people.
Wow. Who are these two ordinary people?
My late husband, Jim Giganti, and myself, Ann Giganti. At the time, we were a young couple, and chance had us meet a very sick child. We had an 8-year-old daughter and a 3-year-old son. Never had we considered adopting a child, especially a critically ill child.
Well, who is this voiceless child, Ann?
Little Heather. She was voiceless, literally. I met her when she was 14 months old. She was living in a pediatric intensive care unit. She'd lived there her whole life, which meant she'd never been outside, never felt the warmth of the sun, never even felt raindrops.
Interesting. What is this book about?
The book's about our struggle to adopt little Heather and the joys and sorrows of our search to find a surgeon who might repair her scarred airway so that she could talk. Otherwise, she would have remained mute forever. She had airway scarring from being born premature. The breathing tube that kept her alive when she was born, it scarred and blocked her airway, so a surgeon created a hole below the scarring in her neck and put a tracheotomy tube into her neck so that she could breathe. But the scarring blocked any airflow through her vocal cords, and so for her, talking was physically impossible.
Wow. How did you meet the voiceless child?
My friend had a sick baby, and I went to visit her and her young son in a pediatric intensive care unit. And I saw this little girl pitching her body erratically. I thought the child was having a seizure, but then I noticed that tracheotomy breathing tube in her neck. So instead of having a seizure, Heather was actually silently crying.
Did Heather recognize you? Was there any kind of connection?
Well, when I walked over to little Heather, our eyes met for a brief instant, and in that instant, her soul gripped mine. And then she faded back into non-recognition, because at the time she used all of her energy to survive, just to breathe. She wasn't really any more alert than a rag doll. A ventilator blew breaths into her lungs, and she was fed by a tube that dripped formula through a hole in her belly into her stomach. She made no purposeful movement. She did not even know how to move a single finger, and some of the staff thought she was deaf, blind, and retarded.
So is that where it all began?
Yes, that very same evening I went home and I woke my husband and I told Jim that we should adopt the child. Of course, he thought the idea ridiculous, and since he was sleeping, he just pulled the covers back over his head and completely ignored me.
Well, you've spent many, many years writing this book. What compelled that type of dedication to doing that?
I wanted to give people hope, and I wanted to share how we navigated the really complicated medical and child welfare system so that maybe other children could benefit and families could benefit from our story. Because sometimes what is seemingly impossible actually does come true. Some dreams do come true. And I also want people to experience the euphoria of Heather's healing, for a child who couldn't breathe and a child who couldn't talk to be able to climb stairs and run and laugh and giggle and speak. The joy of experiencing that is just an indescribable miracle. The book tells the story of how we struggled to become Heather's family and to locate the surgeon who could reconstruct her airway and give her that miracle of voice. Actually, at the time, there were only 35 surgeons in the world who could perform the laryngotracheoplasty surgery, and Dr. Bruce Mattern in Jacksonville, Florida, is who performed the surgery. He is in a specialty called pediatric otolaryngology, so he is a surgeon who specializes in children's ear, nose, and throat disorders.
Wow. You said late husband in your topics. What happened to Jim?
We thought Heather wouldn't survive, and Jim, he took dedicated care of Heather when she first came home. He even slept near her bed in case she couldn't breathe, so he'd be close to her. So Jim cared diligently for Heather when she was little, and then when Heather became a teenager, unfortunately, Jim developed a chronic leukemia lymphoma, and so it's very poignant in that this adopted daughter of ours, and of course our two biological children, they all three cared for Jim during his lengthy illness, and unfortunately in 2012 he did pass away.
Wow. Well, thanks, Ann, for telling us about your book. Ann tells me that the book has a very happy ending, and Heather is grown up now with a family of her own. Where can you purchase this book?
Yeah, the book has a truly happy ending in that Heather grew up and she became a registered nurse. And one of the nurses that used to care for her as a baby actually hired her. So she works in a pediatric intensive care unit and helps babies similar to herself. And she's married and has a daughter of her own. If you go to my website, you can find links to purchase the book. The website is www.voicelesschild.com. The book can be purchased through Amazon, Barnes and Noble, iBooks, and Google Books, Google Play. And thank you for your interest and attention, and I look forward to hear how you like the book. Thank you so much. And thanks, Dave, for the interview.
You're welcome. Take care, Ann.
Thanks.